Hello everyone. So, I never thought I'd be voicing one of these stories. You always read them and think, wow, this is crazy, this would never happen to me. Well, you know what? That's what happened. My name is Mike, and I was married to Sarah for 10 years. That's not her real name, but that's what I'm going to call her in this story. We met in college, and she was everything to me, sweet, supportive, and she had this laugh that could light up the gloomiest room. We built a beautiful life together. It wasn't extravagant, but it was ours. We had a cozy house, a dog named Buddy, and what I really thought was a strong partnership. The first sign, and I beat myself up for not understanding this clearly at the time, was her sudden interest in the higher life. It all started quietly. Comments about a friend's kitchen renovation, sighing over photos of a Bali vacation on social media, suggesting we look at houses in a much more expensive area, just to see what's out there. I'd joke back, kiss her forehead and say, maybe someday, honey. So far, we're doing fine. She'd smile, but her smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. The woman who had once been happy at a picnic in the park was now indifferent to anything that didn't match a 5-star resort. I just thought it was just a phase, you know? Maybe she was bored. I started working overtime, thinking that if I could provide a little more for her, she'd be happy again. I was so blind. Looking back, the weekend getaway was the beginning of the end. Sarah had been unusually distant for a couple of weeks, spending more time on her phone and being vague about her plans. She told me she was going on a girls' trip with her friend Chloe to a spa resort a few hours away. She was almost too excited, packing her best clothes, stuff I hadn't seen her wear in years. I remember feeling a little pang of something, worry maybe? But I brushed it off. I helped her pack and even gave her some extra cash, telling her to have a great time and really treat herself. She gave me a quick hug, a peck on the cheek, and was out the door. The house felt empty without her. Buddy moped around all Saturday. On a whim, I decided to call Chloe on Sunday morning just to see how the trip was going and maybe ask her to subtly suggest a couple's trip for us next time, something to reconnect with Sarah. When Chloe answered, she sounded confused. A spa weekend? Mike, I wish. I'm buried in laundry and kids' soccer practice. I haven't talked to Sarah in over a week. The floor just fell out from under me. I stood there in my kitchen, the phone gripped so tight my knuckles were white. The silence in the house wasn't peaceful anymore. It was accusing. Where was she? The first cold trickle of dread started seeping into my stomach. My mind was racing 1,000,000 miles an hour. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a surprise for me? Maybe she needed some alone time and was embarrassed to say so. But the sick feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. I'm not a suspicious guy by nature, but something felt fundamentally broken in that moment. I went upstairs, my feet feeling like lead. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I ended up in front of her laptop. We knew each other's passwords, a sign of trust that now felt like a cruel joke. I opened it, my hand shaking slightly. Her email was logged in. I didn't have to search for long. There it was, at the top of her inbox, a confirmation email for a luxury boutique hotel. Not a spa resort. A hotel known for romantic getaways. The reservation was for 2 nights, under her name, and a name that wasn't mine. A Mr. Mark Brennan. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. I couldn't breathe. I just stared at the screen, the words blurring. Who was Mark Brennan? I'd never even heard her mention that name. I fell back into her chair, the reality of it starting to crash down. The lies, the secret weekend, the fancy hotel. It wasn't a girl's trip. It was a trip with him. I spent the next hour in a daze, just sitting there. Buddy came and rested his head on my knee, whining softly like he could sense my world falling apart. I finally managed to get up and mechanically started doing chores, trying to numb my brain with mindless work. I was gathering laundry from the bedroom hamper when I saw it. Peeking out from under one of her shirts was a small, glossy black card. It was a business card. *Mark Brennan, Senior Partner, Brennan and Crest Financial. Asterisk, there was a phone number, an email, and an address in the city's most expensive financial district. On the back, written in my wife's familiar handwriting, was a little heart and the words, "Can't wait for our next adventure." This wasn't just a fling. This was an affair with a wealthy financier. The higher standard of living, comments, the size over luxury, it all clicked into place with a devastating, horrible clarity. She wasn't just bored with our life, she was trading up. I was being replaced by a newer, richer model. The card felt like it was burning my hand. I slid it into my pocket, my heart hammering against my ribs. I had to act normal. I had to wait for her to come home. I heard her car pull into the driveway later that evening. I was sitting at the kitchen table, a cold cup of coffee in front of me, trying to look calm. She breezed in, all smiles, her skin glowing from what I now knew was a weekend of luxury and deception. "Mike!" "Hi, honey!" she said, dropping her suitcase and coming over to give me a hug. It felt stiff and foreign. Oh, it was so relaxing. The spa treatments were just what I needed. I forced a smile. "That's great, Sarah. Did you and Chloe do anything else fun?" Her eyes flickered for just a fraction of a second. "Oh, you know, just a lot of lounging by the pool, chatting. Girl stuff." She turned away to unpack her bag, pulling out expensive-looking toiletries that I knew weren't from any standard spa gift shop. "It really makes you appreciate the finer things, you know?" The lie was so smooth, so effortless. It made me feel sick. I just nodded, playing my part in her little play. "Yeah. I bet it does." I wanted to scream, to confront her right then and there with the business card. But I didn't. I knew I needed to be smart about this. The shock was starting to harden into something else, a cold, determined anger. The next few days were agony. I played the dutiful, oblivious husband while quietly observing her every move. She was more distracted than ever, constantly texting with a small, secretive smile on her face. She'd leave the room to take calls saying it was work or Chloe. The lies were piling up, each one another tiny cut. The breaking point came on Wednesday night. We were watching a movie, and her phone buzzed on the couch between us. The screen lit up with a preview of a text message. "Mark *_ missing you already. This weekend can't come soon enough. P.S. Think about what we discussed. _ She snatched the phone up so fast she almost dropped it, her face flushing a deep red. She glanced at me, her eyes wide with a mix of panic and guilt. "Who was that?" I asked, keeping my voice as neutral as I could. "Oh, just Chloe," she stammered, not meeting my eyes. "She's having boyfriend trouble again. You know how she is." I just looked at her. The silence stretched out, heavy and uncomfortable. For the first time, she looked genuinely nervous under my gaze. She knew. She knew that I knew something was off. The facade was beginning to crack, and she was scrambling to hold it together. I couldn't take it anymore. The silent charade was eating me alive. The next morning, I waited until she was having her coffee. I placed the business card on the table between us and slid it toward her. Her face went pale. The color drained so completely it was like watching a switch flip. She stared at the card, then at me, her mouth slightly agape. "Mike, I can explain," she started, her voice a shaky whisper. "Explain what, Sarah?" I said, my own voice eerily calm. "Explain the girl's trip with Chloe who was at a soccer game? Explain the hotel confirmation for you and Mark? Or maybe just explain this." I tapped the card. The panic in her eyes was replaced by something else, defiance. The mask was off. "Fine. You want to know?" "Yes. His name is Mark. And he can give me the life I deserve. A life you could never provide." The words were like shards of glass. "He's successful, Mike. He owns things. He travels. We live in this average little box, and I'm tired of it. I want more." She didn't even try to deny it. She justified it. She looked me right in the eye and told me our life, our 10 years together, was average. And not enough. The wife I loved was gone, replaced by a stranger obsessed with status and wealth. After she laid it all out, she just left. Went to stay with her sister, she said. The house was silent again, but this time it was a crushing, oppressive silence. I sat on the living room floor, Buddy curled up beside me, and I just cried. I cried for the 10 years I thought were real. I cried for the future I thought we'd have. I cried out of pure, unadulterated shock. The anger came in waves. I'd be fine 1 minute, and the next I'd be pacing around the house, my mind racing with 1,000 things I should have said. How could she do this? Was our entire marriage a lie? Was I just a placeholder until someone better came along? The sadness was the worst part. It was a physical ache in my chest. I'd see a photo of us on the wall, smiling and happy, and it felt like a sick joke. I didn't eat. I barely slept. I was a ghost in my own home, haunted by the memory of a woman who never really existed. The person I loved was a carefully constructed illusion, and the real Sarah was someone I didn't know at all. A week later, a thick envelope arrived by certified mail. Divorce papers. She wasn't wasting any time. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was full of legalese, but the intent was clear: she wanted out, fast. But as I read through the demands, the sadness began to curdle into something colder, sharper. It wasn't just about ending the marriage. She was going for the jugular. She was claiming she deserved alimony for a significant period, citing her contribution to the household and her accustomed standard of living. She wanted half of my 401k, half the equity in our house, everything. The sheer audacity of it took my breath away. She left me. She had a wealthy boyfriend waiting in the wings to give her that standard of living, and yet she was trying to financially cripple me on her way out. It was greedy. It was cruel. It was the final, definitive proof that the sweet woman I married was long gone. This was a calculated move by a completely different person. And in that moment, any last shred of hope I had for an amicable split vanished. She wasn't just leaving, she was trying to burn the bridge behind her and collect the insurance money. I sat at my kitchen table, the divorce papers spread out before me like a declaration of war. Buddy rested his head on my foot, a warm, comforting weight. I had a choice. I could roll over, sign the papers, and let her take everything she wanted. Or I could fight. The thought of a long, ugly court battle made me tired. But the thought of her and her wealthy boyfriend laughing about how easy it was to walk all over me made me feel something else. It wasn't just about anger or revenge anymore. It was about self-respect. She had treated our marriage like a transaction, and now she was trying to cash out. I couldn't let that stand. I decided I wouldn't fight dirty. I would fight smart. My revenge wouldn't be loud or dramatic. It would be quiet, precise, and utterly devastating. It would be giving her exactly what she asked for, but in a way she would never, ever expect. I picked up my phone and called the one person I knew could help, my old college roommate, who was now a brilliant and very discreet lawyer. My lawyer friend, David, came over that night. I showed him the papers and told him everything, the affair, the lies, Mark Brennan. David listened, his expression growing grimmer by the minute. "This is pretty aggressive," he said, tapping the alimony clause. "But her new boyfriend's financial situation changes everything. We need to prove her motive was financial and that she's not going to suffer any drop in her standard of living. In fact, she's upgrading." He laid out a plan. We wouldn't contest the divorce. We would appear to be rolling over, playing into her narrative that I was just the average, defeated ex-husband. But secretly, we would be building a case. We needed evidence of the affair, proof of Mark's wealth, and documentation that showed she was leaving for a life of luxury, not out of any hardship. My part was simple. I had to be the perfect, cooperative soon-to-be ex. I had to agree to everything, lull her into a false sense of security. Meanwhile, David would work his magic. The revenge wasn't going to be me yelling or causing a scene. It was going to be the cold, impartial hand of the law, guided by the truths she thought she could hide. The next time Sarah called, her tone was all business, laced with a hint of impatience. "Have you looked over the papers, Mike? We really need to move this along." I took a deep breath, channeling every bit of defeated energy I had. "Yeah, I've looked. It's a lot to take in. But you're right. I don't want a fight. I just want this to be over." I could almost hear her smirk of victory through the phone. I agreed to her terms. I sounded tired, broken, exactly how she wanted me. I told her I just wanted to keep the house and Buddy, and she could have everything else she asked for. She was practically gushing with false sympathy. "Oh, Mike, I knew you'd be reasonable. This is for the best, really. We'll both be happier." I played my role perfectly. I signed everything she put in front of me, asking no questions. I was the picture of capitulation. Meanwhile, David was a ghost in the machine, quietly subpoenaing financial records, gathering evidence of her cohabitation with Mark during the separation, and building an ironclad argument that her claim for support was made in bad faith. She was so confident in her victory that she never saw it coming. The final hearing arrived. Sarah walked in on the arm of her high-priced lawyer, looking confident and already living her new, luxurious life. She wore a brand-new, expensive-looking outfit. She gave me a look that was a mix of pity and triumph. I sat quietly with David at our table, looking every bit the humble, overwhelmed guy she expected. Her lawyer presented their case, painting a picture of a woman who had dedicated her life to our home and now faced uncertainty. Then it was our turn. David stood up. Calmly, methodically, he began to present our evidence. He wasn't emotional or accusatory. He was just stating facts. Hotel receipts. Credit card statements showing lavish dinners and trips during our marriage. Documentation of Mark Brennan's net worth, which was substantial. Most damningly, proof that Sarah had already moved into Mark's multi-million-dollar home, effectively establishing a new standard of living far beyond what we ever had. The judge's expression grew sterner with each piece of evidence. Sarah's confidence evaporated. She slumped in her chair, her face ashen. Her lawyer started frantically shuffling papers. The entire narrative she had built crumbled to dust in a matter of minutes. The judge didn't even need to recess. He looked at Sarah, his gaze stern and disapproving. He saw exactly what she was, a spouse abandoning a marriage for financial gain, with no legitimate need for support. He denied her petition for alimony entirely. He cited her bad faith in seeking support while voluntarily residing with a partner of significant means. He awarded her a much smaller, equitable share of our assets, basically, what she would have gotten if we'd divorced amicably without her excessive demands. There would be no lavish payout. No monthly checks to fund her new life. The look on her face was my revenge. It wasn't triumph I felt, but a cold, quiet satisfaction. The color drained from her face completely. Her mouth hung open in sheer, utter shock. The grand life she had planned, funded by my continued labor, evaporated in an instant. She was left with the consequences of her own greed. She had traded a genuine partnership for a gold-plated cage, and now she had no safety net. She had gotten exactly what she asked for, a divorce. But she had lost her financial leverage, her victim narrative, and any shred of dignity in that courtroom. Walking out of that courtroom was the first time I felt like I could breathe in months. It was over. The revenge wasn't about hurting her. It was about protecting myself and ensuring she couldn't profit from her betrayal. The best revenge, I've learned, is living a good life on your own terms. I kept the house and Buddy. I took a long vacation, just the two of us, to a quiet cabin by a lake. It was the opposite of a 5-star resort, and it was perfect. I'm focusing on myself now, my hobbies, my friends, rebuilding a life that's authentic to me, not built on someone else's unrealistic expectations. My advice to anyone going through something similar? Don't act out of raw emotion. It's tempting to want to scream and cause a scene, but that only gives them power. Be smart. Be patient. Document everything. Get a good lawyer. Protect yourself, because the person you married is gone, and the stranger they've become will not play fair. Most importantly, remember your worth isn't defined by your salary or your possessions. It's defined by your character. And someone who leaves you for a fancier car or a bigger house was never truly there for you in the first place. You deserve better. We all do. Thanks for listening.